If you're looking for some straight-up marketing advice that's super chilled and also a bit of a laugh, then grab yourself a drink and get ready for Marketing and Margaritas, a podcast that makes marketing entertaining. Brought to you by Rebel Nation, direct from regional Queensland.
Welcome to Marketing and Margaritas. I am joined here today by Stephen Pace from CQUniversity, and we're going to be discussing what it's like to be doing a university degree or studying in general in the creative field. So Steve comes from my alma mater, CQU. I think I started uni in 2001. Were you at CQU then?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Because I've never had you as a lecturer or anything. No, yeah. I was over on the comms side of things, so I did a Bachelor of Communication. So
right.
Little, probably near each other, but separate sort of thing. Yeah, cool. Okay, so first let's get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
Which thing came first, teaching or digital media?
It was kind of a bit of a chicken and egg situation.
Okay.
So in the early 90s, I was working as a programmer at the Sugar Research Institute.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I got this invitation to apply for a position as an associate lecturer in IT at CQU. There was no digital media course at the time because digital media technology was really in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
The web existed, but only in universities and research labs. It wasn't really accessible to the public.
Yeah, and not in that creative space that we know it to be today, something with
not.
socials and all that kind of thing.
No, smartphones existed, but mobile phones existed, but smartphones were another 15 years away. And computers had really just become powerful enough to start incorporating text, pictures, sound, animation and video all into the one piece of software. So it was an exciting time, an
That's
opportunity.
so cool, man. That's been so exciting to be at that moment of actually seeing these things rise up and first come together, and it's like, what is this magic? What is this voodoo sort of thing? And
yeah, absolutely. And I was kind of doing some experimental or developing experimental training packages for the Sugar Research Institute at the time as part of a master's qualification that I was doing. And so, they were really quite cutting edge and innovative at the time. So those training packages had text and pictures and animations of machinery out in the mill.
So amazing. How did you do that?
Video.
What's an example of a couple of the programs you used to use back in the day? Can you remember?
I know, that's hard, isn't it? I can't even remember. Toolbook, that was the name of it. Yeah, that was the authoring software. Photoshop was like version 1.
Oh my God.
It was very early days. And so about 5 years after I started working at CQU, I got together with some other academics and we decided to establish this new course that we called the Bachelor of Multimedia Studies. So multimedia was kind of like the common term for digital media back in the day. And it was the first course of its kind to be offered across multiple campuses and online. So that was
cool,
pretty
man. And so you were
too.
part of establishing that.
Yeah,
I had no idea. That's so awesome. Look at you go, pioneering stuff for us.
Yeah, we were pioneers in online education. Yeah.
But that's huge. That's education is what empowers and brings forth the next generation of leaders and stuff and workers and all that kind of thing. So
absolutely.
I think I told you before, my mum was a teacher for 40 years. So education is kind of a bit of a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you were a teacher and then digital media came about during that time and you was one of those early adopters that jumped into it and brought it about, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get what you mean. So how long would you say you've been in, if we say it's from its inception, how long have you been in that digital media space?
So a bit over 30 years. Yeah, that long. So I am a living digital dinosaur.
That is not how I would put that.
The Fred Flintstone of web design. I can remember going to the 7th World Wide Web conference in 1998, where a couple of PhD students from Stanford University got up on the stage. Larry Page and Sergey Brin were their names.
Oh my God! You saw that!
They told us about this project that they were working on at Stanford with the weird name called Google. Maybe you've heard of it. It was an interesting presentation, but at the time I had no concept of
it's here's some other people doing something. That's cool, good on you guys.
Yeah.
Now.
And a couple of years before that, at a different conference, I had lunch with Jerry Yang, who was the founder of a company named Yahoo. And
right.
Yahoo was like the biggest search engine in the world at the time before Google. And he, told me stories about how he and his mate David Philo, again 2 PhD students at Stanford University, how they invented Yahoo a couple of years earlier and how they pull all-nighters in the computer lab. And I remember he gave me his business card and the job title on it was Chief Yahoo, which I thought was pretty cool for the
That is good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I had no idea. And here you are in little old Mackay, you've had all these big experiences. See, living in the regions is cool. Okay, so what year was it that you started at CQU then?
So I started as a full-time academic in 1992.
Okay, all right. And so now we're 2023, so okay.
Yeah, a bit over 30 years.
Wow, that is an extensive amount of time in one place, man. I guess the thing being in the, IT, tech, digital media, that sort of space, that's probably what's kept it, I'm assuming, I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming that's probably part of what's kept it interesting for you.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is
constantly
so changing.
Yeah.
And would you say, as someone who has seen so much of this from its inception, do you think the last, say, 5 years has just been exponential change compared to the 25 before it, or has it always felt it at this pace?
The change does seem to be accelerating, and I think we're going to see even greater change with the popularisation of AI and
100%.
The changes that are happening there. Yeah, so
it's scary but also exciting.
Yeah, it does seem like a turning point. It feels like the days of the early days of the web. It does feel like that.
Yeah, so cool. Okay, and so now actually from your words, why are you still in it? Why are you still teaching, and why still digital media? As two separate concepts.
I think I got into teaching because although I enjoyed the programming side of things and the challenge, the technical challenge, I enjoyed creative challenges as well, and I enjoyed working with people. And so becoming an associate lecturer in digital media provided an opportunity to combine those interests. Yeah,
because if you're just doing software related stuff, whatever like that, a lot of it is kind of solo work and troubleshooting and all that kind of thing, and you are very much on your own for there's definitely collaboration, but you're on your own for a lot of it, whereas as far as a people aspect, teaching is literally helping others to learn those things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was the appeal of getting into it, I think. And in terms of job satisfaction, it gave me some autonomy over my own work, and I work with a great team. I always have, of very capable, creative, funny, caring, hardworking, talented people, and that's a big bonus. And of course I love working with students. I think there aren't too many jobs out there where you sort of have the privilege of making a lasting positive impression on somebody's life, but teaching is one of those jobs where you can do that. I think if you're doing it right. And I've picked up a few national teaching awards over the years, so I think I'm doing something right.
So you definitely are, man. I agree so much. Obviously what I do with training with clients and stuff like that is nowhere near the scale of being a uni lecturer, but even just a small little impact that I get to have on local business owners and their staff and everything, it makes my knowledge and expertise feel more meaningful in a way, that I've been able to show others how they can use these things to improve their business or their lives or their career and stuff. You've had a part in their, very small little part in their success, and that's such a cool moment as well.
Yeah, it's definitely the same thing, that rewarding feeling of being able to have that impact on other people.
Make a difference, And especially for teachers, I remember it wasn't too long ago, there's actually so the school that my mum used to teach at was quite big, and there was a post from an ex-student in this Facebook group that was kind of about this school or whatever, talking about, I don't know if anyone knows Cheryl Macaulay, but I just want to say that she made such a difference in my life. I wouldn't be where I was without her.
Nice.
And she was also this really long, beautiful post about my mum.
Yeah.
And, mum taught, say, 30 kids every year for 40 years, just to think of all of those lives that you impact. And that's, uni teachers, it's the same sort of thing. I just think that people don't, it can be really hard sometimes. It can be really difficult, especially when people are being shits and stuff and all the kind of other challenges and stuff that you have to deal with. But when you just remember that, you know, there are those people where you're making that long-lasting impact on, it's, you know, makes it worth it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I think I keep putting words in your mouth, but I mean, they're my words too, because that's also how I feel, but I'm sorry. I don't mean to talk for you.
No, I think it's a shared experience. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I guess that's probably how I'm not a parent, but I imagine that's probably how parents feel as well, sort of thing, is that you're imparting your knowledge and experience and wisdom to like help them have their best lives and stuff too. Okay, cool. God, we're getting very deep and meaningful here. All right, so let's bring it back to the studying thing. So, like I said, it was like nearly 20 years since I graduated from uni, so I'm assuming it's changed very slightly. There's probably been a couple of little updates since then. And so I just think that, you know, we did have a podcast episode where Lani and I both shared our journey, like our career journey. So we talked about, so she actually did the multimedia studies degree.
Oh, right.
So we talked about how, you know, we first got interested in it through school and then uni and then our jobs and stuff to where we are now. So it was like, I guess just giving people a bit of an insight as to career paths, whereas I thought it'd be awesome to have you on here because you're actually there doing the uni, the tertiary study and everything at the moment with people. So, and I know that when I went to uni, I felt like during high school, I was super comfortable. Like I was just like, you know, I knew what I was doing and assignments and stuff. Like I just felt like I had everything down and it wasn't like school wasn't hard sort of thing. Whereas when I got to uni, I was very much like really overwhelmed at the start. I was confused by all of the terms and how to do things and what things meant or whatever. And then, you know, once I sort of got into it, uni was such an amazing place for me. Just being able to be there with other people who, like me, wanted to learn, because that's not something I always experienced in high school, which a lot of high school students don't actually want to learn. Whereas uni, like, there definitely are some uni students that don't want to learn, but for the most part, we're all paying to be there. So it's kind
experience.
Exactly. And so once I found that, I was like, oh my God, I fucking love uni. Like it just, you know, and I had such a great time. But, you know, when we look at it now, it's very different, and especially when we consider the changes that have happened since COVID over the last few years and how unis are responding to all that sort of stuff. So that's a long-winded way of saying why I asked you on the podcast, in case you didn't know. Okay, so break it down for us. Bachelor of Digital Media, that's the one that you predominantly play with.
Yeah.
What is a Bachelor of Digital Media?
Okay, so it's a qualification that prepares students for a career in the media and communications industries, basically. So we offer it at our Cairns campus, Mackay, Rockhampton, Bundaberg and Brisbane, and also online. So it's fairly flexible. The course consists of a mix of core compulsory units that give students kind of foundation knowledge and an opportunity to figure out where their strengths and interests are, and also optional subjects where they get to specialise. So
electives?
Electives,
Still called electives?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So your core compulsory, and again, I'm just breaking down for people who are potentially looking at uni study who don't know how all this works, because I didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe your core ones, they're the ones where it's like you have to do a set amount of things, and not all of them are offered every semester, and sometimes it might be that you need to do this one, like the basics, and then later on in your degree you do the advanced version of that sort of thing. So you're building on that prior knowledge, etc.
That's right, yeah. So we have most of our core units in the first year. So the first year is quite diverse. It gives people a chance to try what they're interested in. So we have everything from web design to user experience design, coding, visual design, illustration, a bit of video production, a bit of writing, a bit of animation. So it's really quite diverse, and students figure out what they're good at and what they're not good at, or what they're interested in.
What they like, because it's what you're interested in are the things that you'll probably find easier for you to learn. Like when you're interested in something, it's easier to stick to it, it's easier to keep reading about it and try tutorials and things like that.
Yeah.
And so once they do those, then the electives. How do electives work?
Well, then in the second year, that's when we ask them to specialise, to choose. We have 4 areas of specialisation: graphic design, interactive media, screen production, or what you might call film and TV, and animation. So we ask them to go into more depth in that second year. And then,
what's the interactive one? Sorry, can you
So that covers things like web application development, like the back end of
apps
websites, mobile apps, game design and development, that sort of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. And then in the third year, that involves a lot of project work, students working on projects for real clients, which are typically non-profit community organisations who couldn't otherwise afford to realise that particular project. So it's a nice way for our students to get some real life experience, build a portfolio while still giving back to the community. So it's kind of got that dual benefit. And there are also some business subjects in that third year and electives or the opportunity to study outside the digital media course too. So for instance, if you had a particular interest in sound design or sound engineering, you could pick up some sound recording units from the Conservatorium of Music or something like that.
To add into the feature, if you're I'm really getting into the video and production element of it, audio is such a massive component of that. So to bring that in as well.
Good example. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's so cool too, because one of the things that I've said on the podcast, but I say it one-on-one to people all the time, especially when people are applying for jobs with us, or when I get asked, how do I get into marketing and everything? Because especially in regional areas, it can be, well, I guess anywhere it can be, it's a competitive field to get into, I think. There's a lot of people who are applying who don't have any experience, and they're like, well, how do I get into it if I don't have any experience? Like, how do I get the experience if I can't get the job? And I always say, look for something that you believe in. Like, what's a local charity or cause or community group, sporting group that you're involved in or that you care about? Go offer your services for free to them. So you're volunteering, showing that you contribute to society, you give back, but you're also actually building your skill base and getting real life experience. As an employer, that fucking ticks so many boxes. I love that you guys have integrated that actually as a part of the tertiary studies as well, because I think I grew up with my mum, I wouldn't say pushing us, but certainly strongly encouraging. My mum is not someone who pushes, does not interfere with me at all. But there's a few things that she's trying, and one of them was volunteering. We had to volunteer when we were younger, but I think that's such a good sort of foundation to have. So, but not everyone has that when they're growing up, sort of thing. So that there's such a joy in being able to give back and use your time and your talents to help someone, and to see them be so grateful and be able to do more because of it. Sorry, I keep going, but I just think that's so cool to have that in there. I didn't realise.
It's actually a focus of the whole university. It's not just our course, but every course across the university has to have that element of social innovation built into the course. And CQ is actually, it ranks very highly in Australia. Number one, actually, I think, for social innovation in those good university guides and other books like that.
That's
so
cool.
it's really a big part of the fabric of the university.
Go CQU. And because I remember, so from my degree, because I did start a Bachelor of Arts because I had some issues in year 12, and so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I thought I'll do a Bachelor of Arts and just see what feels right. And then I took 6 months off. And then my mum's like, oh, you've got to go back to uni. I don't want you to drop out. So I did a Bachelor of Comms majoring in journalism. And that's where I accidentally did a PR subject. And then was like, oh, marketing and PR. I fucking love this shit. So mine was very much a stumbling effect. But because of those, so I had 2 degree changes. I went from Bachelor of Arts to Bachelor of Comms, majoring in journalism. But then I changed my major as well to professional communication and media studies. So I'd done a bunch of cores that then had to be taken as electives because I had to do the cause. So mine was all a bit hodgepodge because of me changing my mind, etc., sort of thing. So I think that's why I got so confused. But I do remember that, those first 2 years were very much subject based, and then in our third year we did a prac, we did a communications project, which we delivered an event. It was like a Australian Idol, which had just come out in the last few years. So it was really huge at the time. We did a Whitsunday icon. We did a singing competition actually, and we physically actually did it in the Whitsundays with the local PCYC and stuff sort of thing. So, and then, it was this whole big deal. But that's, I do remember that's still, a really strong memory for me of, not just obviously as part of my degree, because obviously we had to promote the event and coordinate and everything, but just the real life implications of fucking relying on other people and sometimes coordinating other people is like herding cats, man. Like it's so much more challenging when you can't just rely on yourself. And I guess that's what group work and everything is about too. Which I fucking used to hate group assignments.
Yeah, most students do. But those collaborative projects are so...
because that's how life works.
Learning experiences. Exactly.
Yeah, we actually don't, we can't just, we're not a fucking island. You actually do have to work with other people and rely on and learn how to work with all different types of people. So I can see how it's useful now, but back then I was like, oh, fuck me. I'm the only one who actually does any work.
Managing the conflict and learning to rely on other people and making sure that you do your part, remembering that other people are relying on you. They're really valuable learning experiences, those project units.
I think seeing things from different perspectives and stuff as well. Like, I remember doing a uni project where, like, I thought I was the one who'd done, like, the bulk of the work up front, whereas the others had sort of, by the time the end of it, they'd forgotten everything I'd done up front, and they thought they were doing all of these things because they were doing stuff now. And I'm like, remember all the hours I put in at the start? You know what I mean? But from their perspective, if I look at it from their perspective, I'm like, okay, I can see how they felt that I wasn't then pulling my weight at the end. So it's sort of like, I think it does help, that kind of whatever industry you go into, and it's not just for work, it's like life as well, is that you do have to work with other people and everything, and that's a good thing because it does make concepts stronger and better and everything too. Okay, cool. So tell me, what's it like studying in the creative field these days? And again, to keep throwing back to my experience, but because I did a comms degree, we didn't have exams. We just had assignments, which was fucking awesome. Although, like, you'd have your assignment due date and literally, and like my mum knows this, so it's not like I should be ashamed to tell you, but I would be up the night before, guarana tablets, rum, cigarettes. That's how I got through my uni.
Today you'd have to
model student.
You'd have to add ChatGPT to that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I probably wouldn't have had to stay up so fucking late if I had ChatGPT back then. That was all just me. But what does it look like now studying in the creative field? Like, what does the actual study days look like?
Yeah, so these days it's very flexible. I guess it was flexible to a certain degree when you studied as well. Half of our students would study on campus, half would study online. For on-campus students, they would attend regular weekly face-to-face tutorials with a local tutor, maybe in the computer lab or production studio or audio booth or whatever the most appropriate facility is. They can borrow equipment from the campus, whether it's cameras or graphics tablets or mics or lighting kits or whatever for their project work. Assessment is still very much assignment based. We don't use exams in the digital media course either, simply because it's not an effective way of assessing the kind of skills and knowledge that students develop in that course.
Yeah, it's how do they actually implement the theory, not what is the theory.
That's right.
What shutter speed should you have your fucking camera at? You know what I mean? Like, that's not really an effective way of measuring how much they're getting out of it.
Definitely. It's not about memorising anything. And the assessment tasks are usually authentic tasks in the sense that the kinds of activities they'll be doing in the workplace. So that's what assessment looks like these days. And for online students, they're doing the exact same course as the on-campus students, the same content, the same assessment, but their interaction with the course is different. So they're not attending face-to-face classes because they typically have full-time work or maybe family commitments, but they are invited to weekly video conference tutorials, Zoom tutorials, and a lot of them take advantage of that. And for those who can't attend because of other commitments, those sessions are recorded and uploaded to the unit website, and so they can still access that at a later time when it's more convenient for them.
Yeah.
So it's very flexible. There's
the weekly tutorials. Are there still lectures?
Not in the digital media course. Our tutorials are more like a series of. There's certainly a practical component, and those practical activities are kind of interspersed with short presentations rather than the traditional
sitting in the university,
where everybody switches off. So it's
you mean that's not effective for this?
I think
it's almost like you want to engage the students, Steve.
That's right. I think lectures still have their place if they're done well, but we tend not to use them. We have the shorter presentations with the practical activities and maybe break out for a group discussion about what we've just talked about or worked on. There might be video clips incorporated for people to watch. Yeah, again, it's quite diverse, the tutorial sessions.
And so you still have like your group activities, and so there's that bit of peer-to-peer learning and stuff sort of thing as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. All right, that sounds awesome. So I guess, like, obviously uni has changed a lot since nearly 20 years ago when I went, but like I was saying, the last few years has been a big change for all of us. From a uni landscape, what do you think are some of the biggest changes that have happened in the last few years, and how do you think they're affecting students?
Yeah, so I think the pandemic was a real turning point for universities worldwide. A lot of traditional unis really struggled for that first year of the pandemic to try and figure out how to teach online for the first time. It wasn't a big transition for CQU because we've been teaching distance education since the 1970s, back to the days when we used to post out printed study guides and VHS video cassettes to students.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh my God.
Yeah, that was what it was like teaching in the early days.
Wow.
So
that makes complete sense. That's so, I've never thought about it before though. That's so crazy.
It wasn't a big transition for us because we had already been teaching online just as a matter of our regular practice.
Yeah, so you had those skills and resources and some logistics already worked out.
Definitely. So our student satisfaction scores in that year of the pandemic were among the highest in the country because of, we had our act
already
together.
Had that infrastructure, yeah.
Since the pandemic, I've seen a large proportion of students choose to study online rather than on campus. I'm not sure if that's a great thing or not. I mean, online education is great. I have no concerns about the quality of education that they're getting. And for some students, it's their only option because of work or family.
Commitments, yeah.
But I don't think it's for everybody. Some students really do need that motivation and interaction from the face-to-face interaction with teaching staff and other students.
I think it's the richness of the experience. Like, I think back to the days of sitting around those old stone tables and stuff and just like, you'd be talking about something and someone else would be interested in what you're saying and they'd just sit down and all of a sudden there's like a whole group of you talking about some kind of cool shit that you're learning and whatever. And I mean, you're all fucking pretentious and up yourselves and think you fucking know everything because that's that, not because of uni, I think it's that early, that late teens, early 20 age where you think you know everything and then it's like a switch happens and you're like, actually I don't know anything at all. But at that point it's, you know what I mean? Like, but those discussions, those friendships, those interactions, that's not something, because obviously I'm in digital. I'm a big believer in online learning and training and all that sort of thing. And trying to recreate that connection and community and stuff is a challenge in the online space for anybody. I think at uni, especially because there are traditional experiences of that face-to-face and it's not just like, there's the connection to your lecturers and the people who are teaching you, but it's your peers and everything as well, like that's your community too.
Yeah. So when students who need that motivation and interaction choose online learning just for the convenience, they often struggle. And it's a shame to see. That does concern me.
We're also only so fucking self-motivated too, you know what I mean? Like it's much easier to stick to doing X, Y, Z if you're doing it with a friend or something too. Whereas by yourself, you're just always relying only on your own willpower or your own discipline. And that can be a bit tiresome sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the other big change I've noticed over the past few years has been the sharp increase in mental health issues among younger students. I mean, mental health issues have always been with us, of course, and I did notice them really start to ramp up with the advent of social media. But the pandemic and the conditions since the pandemic has kind of taken that to another level.
Stressful, man. Society is fucking stressful.
Oh, absolutely.
And for these kids, they're really just entering society as adults. Like at least the rest of us have a little bit of grounding in it sort of thing and a bit of resilience. But for some of them, like they don't have that yet. They're going, like obviously everyone's got different backgrounds and all that kind of stuff, but you have some kids who have been very protected in the home because that's what parents do, they protect their children, whatever. And then they're going out and actually like doing adulthood and like having to rent and buy their own groceries and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, inflation and all, all that kind of thing. Like it's full on. Those ones who couldn't do the gap year that they were planning because there was no international travel. And it's like, yes, that's for that cohort or whatever, but then what's the long-lasting impact for those kids and stuff too? You know what I mean? Like they're all people, like their lives count. So it's like, you know, we think about it being in those COVID times, like the ones who maybe didn't go to uni because it was difficult or they couldn't do face-to-face. What's the impact in their life going to be? How's that role and effect going to happen? So, and I think, mental health is definitely a significant part of that.
So there are really a lot of pressures on students today. But on the brighter side, I guess the flexibility of getting into uni has certainly improved, and just the actual study, the options for online study and blended study, I think that's never been more flexible. And I think teaching staff are a lot more understanding of the pressures on students and a lot more caring than they used to be as well.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we've all kind of come through this together, and maybe we can all be a little bit more empathetic and kind towards each other and ourselves.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I literally remember during COVID where I was just like, and when we first came out of it and everything, thinking, oh my God, like, you know, it's so nice to see people being so much more supportive and kind towards each other. And I was like, I don't know how long this will last, but I fucking hope it lasts a long time, because it's just so much nicer when people lift each other up than try and pull people down, you know what I mean?
Of course.
That's something I think that, you know, that whole tall poppy syndrome and shit like that, like it can be really quite negative sort of thing. So I think that, like, there's always, even with negatives, there's always positives that come out of things as well. And it's interesting at how that, played out in uni too. Very interesting. Okay, cool. So so that's how the actual degree and study and all that sort of thing works or whatever. So what are some of the roles that you then see students go into once they complete their degree, or maybe not like straight away, but like some of what they've actually, like where they've gotten to when that was part of their career journey?
Yeah. The roles and jobs that students move into are very diverse and really depend on what they studied during their course. So I can think of students like Madeline, who runs her own successful photography and graphic design agency in Rockhampton. David, who started a screen production agency in Hervey Bay. Nick, who works as a video editor for a television network in Sydney. Hayden, who works as head of social media for an advertising agency in Sydney. There are so many diverse examples. Rihanna, who works as a learning designer in Melbourne. I can think of another student, I just can't remember his name, who's working as... I
think you're doing really well, man. Like, don't beat yourself up because you forget a name.
He's like a user experience designer working for Autodesk, the software company in Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just really, really quite diverse, depending on, as I said, on the nature of what the students chose to focus on during their studies.
And that's the thing, I guess, you know, when it comes to like that digital media, is that you could be working at an agency and touching like multiple different sorts of customers and like brands and everything, or you could be working in-house within a particular place and helping that, you know, them to better do whatever it is they're doing, but then also being actually part of the media, so part of one of the distribution channels, etc., or in that kind of startup sort of tech space and everything. Well, not just tech, startup can be like lots of different things, but we see a lot of predominantly obviously in tech or whatever. So it sort of does lend itself into all different sorts of areas.
Yeah, when you mentioned startup, that reminded me of a really good example of a local student named Alex, who went from Mackay to Melbourne to London, where he's still working now. When he did the course, he knew that he wanted to be a designer, and to make himself stand out from the other graduates, he developed this mobile app that he called Amperclef, and it was kind of an app that design studios could use to keep track of how much time they were spending on a client's job for billing purposes.
Ooh, that's a very useful one.
Yeah. So when Alex went to his first job interview in Melbourne, he showed them the app, and they were really impressed by the diversity of his skills, because, you know, app development is not something that graphic designers normally do. And he got the job, and within a short time he was working on designing websites and mobile apps for really big name clients like Officeworks, the NAB mobile app, landing pages for Nike, really big projects. And from there he went to London, where he now works as the user experience design lead for checkout.com, which is one of the most successful startups in Europe.
Yeah, right.
And then last year, Alex came back to Mackay to visit his family, and he came to the campus and did a little seminar with our students.
That's
talking about his
fantastic.
experiences. Yeah, so,
what an opportunity for them as well to sort of see, look, your dreams can take you anywhere.
Yeah. So it was so motivating for them, and as an academic, it was so nice to see that full circle.
Oh, what I'm doing has meaning. Yay. It's all we want from life. Okay, so to wrap up today, I, as the lecturer, I wish I would have had the opportunity to be this close with my lecturers to ask them this, because it is something that even though school came really easily for me, I did have some challenges and everything in uni. And I guess just because of certain things being overwhelming and maybe potentially also because school had been easy, I wasn't prepared for the effort and the work that uni presented at the time. Mm-hmm. But I just want to see, what's your top tip or your few top tips for actually successfully completing a degree? Because I know when I was younger, there was like a bit of a joke that as soon as you, like more people would drop out than continue. As soon as you, defer, like, which is what I did. I deferred for 6 months, and that's when my mum freaked out and actually said something, which again, like I said, she's not an interferer, but deferring was basically code for dropout sort of thing back in the day. And so for actually, like at the start, it's like all of this stuff and it's exciting, whatever, but it's like full on and there's pressures and you still have work and living arrangements and your relationships and all kinds of things happening. What are some of the things that you think are important for actually successfully completing a degree, whatever degree that might be?
Yeah, I think my top tip would be just show up. I think it was Woody Allen who said that 90% of life is just showing up.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good start. If you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or depressed or just tired or just lacking in motivation
or whatever, yeah,
just try showing up to your class and seeing where it takes you from there. Try to get involved, participate, talk to your classmates, get to know them, make friends, talk to the teaching staff, ask questions, ask for help when you need it. I think you'd be surprised at how motivating the experience can become and how much help is available when you do put forth that initial, even if it's just a little bit of effort.
Yeah, reaching out. Mm-hmm. So it's not like saying, you have to study harder or be top of the class or make sure you're doing X amount per week or whatever. It's literally just get involved.
Yep.
Like reach out and get involved.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming along today, Steve. I really appreciate it. And I just thought that was really interesting. And I hope I didn't fucking dominate the conversation too much. I love all of this stuff so much. I'm just like, here's all the things I think. Maybe we should hear from you because you're the guest. I don't know. But, so I do apologize.
No, not at all. No, I think education is something that everybody can talk about because, we've all had that experience.
Yeah. And it's good. Like it's a big part of who we are is our educational background and where that, played a role in bringing us who we are today. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us as well. I hope you got a lot out of that and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.